What's up, family? Welcome in today. So glad to have you all with us for an incredible conversation. Listen, we have a special guest today, so I'm going to forego our usual announcements other than to say thank you for those of you who have been supporting me in the Entrepreneur of Impact competition. Really does mean a lot. Currently, you've been keeping your boy in the lead. I'm in the top 20, the tippity top of the top 20. That means number one. If you didn't know what that was, I'm number one. We're number one. But anyway, thank you so much for your support. And as of now, you have the ability to double your votes up until 9 p.m. So you do that. All right. So I told you I'm going to keep this short. I even gave us a short intro today because I can't wait to get in this conversation. So with that being said, today we have with us Darante Lambert from the incomparable MythVision, y'all. Derek and I work in similar but very different spaces. His work heavily focuses on biblical scholarship, literacy, and criticism, allowing audiences to gain deep insight into the history of religion and mythology. My work, of course, centers the psychosociological frameworks that often underpin belief and the infrastructure needed to build beyond. But what we both have in common is a sincere desire to platform conversations and develop resources that help people navigate the aftermath of religious deconstruction, regardless of where that leads them to. So listen, I'm super honored to have Derek on today, and boy, do I have some questions for him. So if you're in the chat, will you do me a favor and welcome Darante Lambert of MythVision to our channel today. Brother, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. You've had me on your channel like one time before, and you've tried to get me back. And of course, I've been aloof and just been like all standoffish and all that jazz. And look, I got no reason to be aloof. This dude's channel is like 4 or 5 times bigger than mine. Actually, he probably has like 6 channels that are bigger than mine right now. But he's out there doing just amazing work. How's your day going, man? How are you feeling today?
Good. Tired. Just getting ready, for debate this Friday. Last minute stuff, you know what I mean? And
absolutely.
And then you hit me up and said, dude, let's do this stream. And I said, what's up? Of course, anytime with you. So if you're watching from MythVision, make sure you subscribe to Darante, very good friend of mine, and I really do appreciate your friendship. And what you're building is very important, I think, because often it's easy and fun to break toys, okay? But giving them another toy is also not as it doesn't get the clicks. It doesn't get it doesn't pay the bills as good. Okay. And
thank you for saying that.
You have to be honest. You have to be honest, because the analogy I give psychologically is when we're driving down the road and you see like there's like a fundraiser washing cars on the side of the road, you might turn your head, but the speed limit says 45, you're going 45.
Yeah.
Now, when you see sirens, lights, cones, you slow down to 5 miles an hour. Everybody stops. Everybody turns. Everybody wants to know what's going on. And you're honking at the guy in front of you going, dude, it's just an accident. But then when you pull up, you turn your head too. You go, well, what's going on? And everybody does it. So that's why I think it sells to deconstruct, but it also should sell to reconstruct. And how do we do that? How do we do that as a community to get the hype going, to say, let's build something and not just tear down everything?
Absolutely. Well, listen, y'all, for those of you that are watching, normally on Wednesday Lives, I'm super engaged in the chat. Today it's going to be a little different because I got to give my guests some space. So listen, if you have some questions and you have some comments that you want to be platformed, that you want to catch my attention, I actually have my super chat bar pulled up here to make sure that I see it. Send in those super chats and we'll stop and address your questions or your comments. Now, Derek, before we get started, over the past few weeks, you've apparently been on a very interesting journey. And I'm just going to kind of walk this down a little bit. So from what I've seen, Wes Huff convinced you to go back to Calvinism. And then that lasted a little bit. And then you and Gnostic Information were convinced by Jay Dyer to convert to Orthodoxy. And then Trent Horn's catechism led you to the Quran. The Quran led you to the Torah, which led you to ancient Canaanite polytheism, then to Mesopotamian religion, then to Egyptian religion, and then landing on Ahura Mazda. So now the first thought I had was this is absolutely a genius way to introduce the mosaic of cultures that are intertwined with mythic faith systems. But I am curious, was this really just a creative April Fool's gag for you? Or was there something more to this? What were you hoping your audience would get from that from that long list of deconversions and reconversions?
So just to get it factual on what happened and make sure where we're at today, okay? So I kind of, the first narrative that you were dissecting there, the very first April Fool's Day, it is
Yes.
confusing. I can see why it's confusing because my buddy Bill converts to Orthodoxy, even though he's not, and I converted to Catholicism that day, according to
Ah.
now. I give Wes some credit, but I give Trey Horn more credit. So then what happened was someone wrote me, actually, this is what inspired it. Someone wrote me, a fan. This is why our audiences are wonderful. They bounce
Yes.
ideas off of us, you know? And
Yes.
they said 4 or 5 years ago, Derek, you did an April Fool's video and you were like for real convincing. And I had to wait till the last second when you were like, but look, if I wink twice, then this is just, not real. And like I winked twice, but you had to wait the whole 7 minutes of me like really going, guys, my heart, like I was way more convincing than this last joke of a video that I made on YouTube. So I went from Catholicism, jokingly saying how I became a Muslim. Then from a Muslim, I ran into a passage about Moses.
Yeah.
And I realized I got to go to the OG source about Moses. So I went to Torah, became a Jew. Then I left Judaism when I realized that they're talking about Baal. Like there's a constant recycling of the older myths. I became a Canaanite, Ugaritic, if you will, follower. Then I realized, hold on, Baal is not the oldest. There's older Mesopotamian gods like Inanna, Ishtar, and Damuzi. And so I became an ancient Mesopotamian. Then I transitioned to Osiris and Isis in Egypt because I liked the idea that there's resurrection long before, Jesus. And then I went from there to Ahura Mazda or Zoroastrianism. And then today I've left Zoroastrianism and became a ancient Greek pagan who follows as Dionysus today.
That's right. I did see that. Okay. Yes.
Yeah. So who knows where my journey continues, but what inspired it was one day at a time, I just went, man, let me pull April Fools and just kind of keep pulling on this thread. And people were liking it. And I was like, hey, I'm going to keep doing it. And then eventually probably come full circle, but you never know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I love it. I think one of the things that I thought was really creative about it, again, like I said, you got this mosaic of cultures intertwined, but it almost tells the story backwards, right? So, because like what you're doing is you're going further and further and further back with each one. And as a sociologist, that kind of appeals to me. Now, your work has always kind of centered around mythicism, or at least started in mythicism, and it still kind of remained true to exploring mythology in that form. What is the difference, in your opinion, between valuing myth and submitting to it? Because it seems like you still value these stories. You still derive great joy from going through them. You're just no longer submitting to them. Like that was even in one of your posts, like where you asked that, hey, well, you know about Baal, but don't you want to worship him? What is keeping you from worshiping the myth? How do you find value while separating this idea of submitting to it as divine truth?
Yeah, I think most of the people who probably watch our channels have likely deconstructed from a high form of some kind of religion, Christianity, probably, most likely, statistically. When you do deconstruct, something happens where your critical thinking skills typically go up. You have a harder threshold that people have to cross in order to convince you of things. But does that mean you can't play with the toys or find something that's valuable in them? And I think what happened is I did a deeper and deeper dive into learning more about these stories without going through the lens of the Judeo-Christian lens that the glasses we were wearing. Like if we're Christians, pretend you and me are still Christians, and we talk about Dionysus, that's a demon.
Yes.
We're not going to see. Yeah, we're not actually seeing Dionysus for Dionysus. We're seeing Dionysus for the demonic, evil, drunkard, deity, lust, the whole nine, right? But then when you actually go to the classicists who specialize and study the ancient world from the Greeks in their lens, not through the Judeo-Christian one, you start going, yeah, okay, there is a lot of superstition there. Don't get me wrong. But you can then actually evaluate and go, I'm not looking through such a tainted colored lens that tells me I can't evaluate this. And I look at it and I go, wow, actually there's some interesting stories about these plays, Aeschylus, Euripides, Heracles' 12 Labors. What a hell of a story if you haven't read it. So I think I want to use it to a modern analogy so it hits home for the viewer. That is Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter, any well-known fiction you might see today. There are cultural tropes embedded within these fictions. They subconsciously are hitting you because you're like a fish in a tank breathing water and don't realize that's your environment. But when we go back, we can see some of that and go, that's ancient. That's not stuff we do anymore. But it's like a fascination with the history and loving the stories, because even in some of those ancient stories, there's still a good lesson to take away. There's still good teaching sometimes, not always. But if we were saying, hey, it's not like people are hurting people using Greek myth, right? We watch Game of Thrones. We don't control people's thoughts and say, you can't watch that. Don't you know that the queen is sleeping with her brother incestually? Like, there's bad morals in there. Yeah, I know. Nobody, I think, watches that and goes, I'm going to now go do that. So, I think you can engage myth and stories and find value and escape sometimes the harsh realities we live with on a daily basis in a fun, meaningful way, and yet not have to take an ontological conclusion that this is in fact literally true. Playing with that is fun, I think.
No, I like that. I think in a very interesting way, it better humanizes the people who pulled these stories together, the people who imagine these stories. When we trap these things into divine command, when we trap them into superstition, we actually lose the humanity behind the stories. We lose the humanity that led to the mythology. And I think that's one of the things I realized when I was going through my deconstruction, or literally my deconversion, of so much of what I thought I knew about Jewish culture had nothing to do with Jewish culture. It was this very Christianized version of it. And then, of course, once I started getting into that, then I couldn't study, Israelite culture. I'll say it that way better. I couldn't get into Israelite culture without getting into Canaanite culture. And then that got a little scary for me when you start saying, oh, so Baal is not a false god, but at one time is like a part of this pantheon of Canaanite gods. And that was very interesting. Let me ask you this. How long have you been doing this, man? Because I think when I was still a pastor, I remember seeing your videos. So how long have you been in the game?
Well, MythVision?
Yeah.
I think MythVision's roughly 8 years. And it started, I was working a construction job. I was working with my hands, trying to provide. And I recall moments where I would listen. I became a supervisor, worked up the chain after 3.5 years, was really good at what I did. Blueprints. We were installing solar panel fields. So we were a heavy equipment crew. We'd go in with the big machines. We'd hammer these massive I-beams into the ground. And, we had specs and all that. I'm running crews. Like I'm the man, So I have a Bluetooth in my head, and I'm listening to podcasts. And I mean, we're talking every day. YouTube, if I could find a podcast to listen to things. A lot of the stuff I'd listen to back then were probably fringe in the sense that, academics would look at it and go, nah, but it was a gateway to allow me. This is why it's like, bro, like if we just, it's so easy to be at your destination and then mock the path. Okay.
Ooh, that's good.
So, I mean, it really is. It's so easy to get to your conclusion and then look at everyone behind you. You go, what are you doing? So stupid. It's like, bro, that was you 8 years ago.
Right.
Don't you remember yourself? Wouldn't you want more compassion toward yourself? So
come on.
I went down these kind of paths, and it was a gateway to realizing there are some serious scholars who have some serious thoughts about these that really put out some peer-reviewed stuff. And then I started to go into that. But 8 years ago, I'm out in the middle of some country, literally farm, a pig farm in North Carolina. And we're hanging out, hammering I-beams in the ground. I'm listening to podcasts, carrying my Mac computer with me to hotels, and would do an interview once every couple weeks. And it was the worst internet service, the most terrible quality audio. I did not know what I was doing, but I was just having fun. And it was a hobby that eventually took off, and people wanted to see more.
Wow. Which I am going to ask a little bit more about that as we go on. But right now, so a lot of people know you as the guy behind MythVision. But I want to kind of start a little bit before the platform, before the interviews, before the scholarship, before the public deconstruction. Who were you when you still believed? And what impacts did deconstruction have on that version of you.
Mm.
Like, what type of believer were you? Where did you draw your strength from? Who were you when you believed, and which part of you did you have to let go in order to be the Derek you are today?
Yeah, that's interesting because I
These are
realized
Oprah questions today.
very, very, yeah. I I realized that looking back, I was always there, but I thought it was something else. I thought it was Jesus. I thought it must be
Mm,
Jesus that was guiding me. And this might be a bit esoteric. Some might call it spiritual. Again, I think when people use the term spiritual, I think simply synonymously with psychology. Okay, so
absolutely.
I go down that path, and I understand what they mean by it. I think even if they do have magical thinking involved in that. So for me, I thought it was Jesus. Okay. And I was very, very much sucked into believing in the Bible as much as I could, to understand as much as I could. I'd pray. I was very much a daily prayer, daily worship music, trying to stay connected into the feelings because
Yeah.
I think I also had a lot of trauma growing up with an alcoholic father
Yes,
and
sir.
feeling the words didn't match what I felt when dad was sober. Dad drunk versus dad sober made me feel maybe like felt like a lack of love. And that's why I think the altar call in sixth grade to come down and commit my life to Jesus hit
Wow.
differently. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because this father
Yeah.
would never forsake me, never
Hmm.
let me go. And I felt a euphoria. I felt a placebo on a level I've never felt. Right? I wasn't walking on the ground that day, Darante. I
Yeah.
was 5 feet off the ground and I was
Yes, sir.
floating. And I think that you kind of brought it into the deconstruction. What happened with my learning was, and a lot of Christians have commented over the years, how could you forsake him? You said you knew him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to tell the Christians, I did know him
Come on.
and I still do.
Ooh.
Okay. It was me. It's you.
Mm.
You see,
Come on.
you're projecting what you think from a text, from a word a pastor said, from a person who told you. You got to attach that experience to that thing, and then you believe that thing is what's the truth.
Yeah.
You think that thing is what it is, but really it's your consciousness. It's you. And I think when you come to worship that, when you come to accept and love
Mm.
that,
Come on now.
bro, that's a rock that foundation's not going nowhere, bro. I'm almost
That's
11
right.
years off heroin. I was mainlining heroin on a daily basis on my way to death,
Wow.
literally. And I do not even have the slightest I have completeness. I feel wholeness. I'm a very sensitive guy though. I do feel
Yeah.
things. I like
Yeah.
I have to watch out with those feelings, you know,
Yes,
because I
sir.
care too much. I do.
Yeah.
Um but I think that the journey's end was realizing it was me, and that's why the crash land never happened. I didn't go down into some dark, dark hole when I left because I realized it was just me. And if that's the fundamental foundation I'm at, that all along it was your consciousness and the loved ones around you that really are there, that it's the real thing and tangible in your
Wow.
life. That's the most important thing to me, in my opinion. And I hope
No,
everybody finds.
absolutely. I love that. There's a song by I think her name is Maddie Zahn, and and the lyrics kind of go like that. If it wasn't God, then it must have been me
Right.
this whole time. And that was I definitely resonate with that because I had to figure out like who I was after I deconstructed after nearly 2 decades in ministry. How much of that was me and how much of that was God. And of course, for me, oh no, it was all me. This is why I'm still technically doing it, because this is who I am. This is my vocational passion.
Mhm.
Now, you've been very vocal in your story about your journey of addiction and recovery. In what ways has recovery reshaped how you think about religion, certainty, and dependence? Because typically the company line is you go to religion to get free from any type of addiction. Your story seems to be a little different than what gets presented normally. So how has recovery shaped how you think about religion and certainty and dependence?
Mm. Well, there's three things, right? So religion, certainty, and dependence. And there's a lot in that. So I think I'll just start with religion and then help me
Yeah,
remember if I can't get to the
I
other things.
got you, bro.
Um, so I was in AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, before I was 21. In the United States
Wow.
of America, you're not allowed to drink till you're 21. I'm already an alcoholic before I'm even legally allowed to drink. And so
Wow.
I'm abusing drugs, alcohol, depends. It was usually one at a time. I didn't like mixing them. I'd be drinking on a binge, like really heavily bad. I mean, we're talking blackout phase where I would get violent. Okay. So that was the biggest issue. And then
yes, sir.
The other phase is the drugs, which is self-violence in the sense that I really was putting my own body through hell. Yeah. And when I was in AA early on, and took me years, I was struggling with this whole thing and trying to get recovery, and then I'd relapse and get recovery. And I was very religious. I'd show up at AA and I would try to find a way to sneak my Jesus in. I would find a way because they let you have a power of your own understanding, a higher power. And I would make that, like, I would go out of my way, listening to people speak and think about a clever Jesus example or Jesus preachy thing I could do in that meeting. And I did that for many years. Then I relapse. Then I come back and I'd get back into the church, and the church would tell me it was demonic or spiritual, or you something's wrong with you in terms of God and spirituality and all that. And I had no clue. No one gave me a solution that science might actually have a key. No one told me empirical data and something physiologically, like there might be something psychologically. Like they didn't go that route. They always said it's spiritual, it's demonic, it's this, it's that, it's devil. And that was unfortunate. It handicapped so many people in the world, I think, from actually getting treatment, because to realize it's not an ethical or moral issue, but there's an actual issue that could be treated. They're human. They're not bad people. They're sick. And when you realize that is very freeing for a lot of people who enter into recovery groups that are out there. So long story short, to talk about religion, I'm now at a place where, let's just jump to my worst case scenario here. I am in the darkest hole of my life. I'm seeing my reflection through a spoon after injecting the liquid that was just in it. And I am in an existential crisis. I'm going to die. And I said to my brother, like, how did we get here? I'm the darkest place. So I know that whatever I'm doing isn't working. And then I finally start just praying. This is like right there at the end of my foxhole prayer kind of thing, asking if there's anything out there. I mean, I've called upon Jesus, but at this point I'm like, if there's anything that's out there that hears me, save me. I need this. I'm going to die. I'm begging you. Right. So then I go into the recovery groups. I start, processing what they're saying. I'm just trying to stay alive at this point. It's survival. I'm not deconstructing in terms of like, I'm not like looking to try and look for logical arguments or try to understand the religion. I'm simply looking for evidence that can help keep me clean, clues, signs from the universe, anything like that. Yeah. And I'm listening to these parables from people who aren't in the Christian religion that really made me think. Very deep parables. Some are using biblical language, but they're not written in any holy book about God. So God goes to make humanity, right? And it's not in any holy book, this example, but he goes to make humanity and describes humanity as intelligent, brilliant, ambitious, passionate, loving, caring, all these attributes, right? The devil overhears it and says, I got to hide God from man. So when man comes to be created, he won't find God. So he hides God underneath the mountains, under the rocks of the earth. I can't hide him there because God said that man will be ambitious and driven and motivated and intelligent. He'll unearth the mountains, remove them, move the rock, and find God. Where can I hide God? I'll hide God under the oceans, underneath the sands of the sea. That's what I'll do. No, man will be ambitious, intelligent, motivated, driven, find an apparatus and will descend beneath the water, sweep away the sand and find God. So then the devil thinks long and hard, where can I hide God that man will never find God? And then a light bulb goes off. I know where this is going.
Yeah.
I will hide God inside of every individual human, and they will spend their whole life looking outward, trying to seek, trying to find, putting on the coat, putting on the suit, trying to discover. It's like this, say these words, do this thing, and never just look inside and realize it was you. And when I heard this weird mixture of Eastern philosophy with this Western tradition, I went, hold up. It was you. And so I went to the next AA meeting, the next NA meeting, the next AA meeting. And I was hearing other people who had 20 years of sobriety. Life's in great order. They have their shit together. And then guess what they were telling me? My God is Buddha, or my God is this other God. And I'm going, So my mind was going, how is their lives so intact and they're able to achieve such a great achievement most people don't do with a different God than the Christian God I had? Something was working. And what I realized was whatever that God is, whatever that thing you believe is disconnected from whatever this is, what's going on in the psychology and the experience of the human. So I was able to then kind of rationalize over my deconversion throughout my recovery to go, all the words of this ancient text that I thought were the truth, and this book was true, the words of God were true, and all that. I realized that was all my projection. My experience as a conscious person was what was ultimately true. I projected the name of the deity. It could have been Bagaboo. It doesn't matter. It could have been anything. And yet I could have achieved these successful things and had a fulfilling life. And that was when I realized meaning is what we give it. And so I disconnected the belief systems from the psychology of the person and realized all those times you felt God and Jesus, that was really just your human experience. And that's not to take away the power of experience. I think we need to have it. We need to know how to harness it. We need to tap into it more. But you could see where I went with this. It started to realize maybe there was no God or Jesus or ghost that was behind it. It was just me, this conscious human. Yeah.
It's like the time you see the footsteps in the sand and it's just your footsteps, that's when you woke up to reality and realized it was just me the whole time.
Bro, that is the analogy I give all the time. That is literally it. And it sounds a bit selfish, but what I mean by that too is that my mom, my dad, my wife, my children, my loved ones, it's last analogy. I know you have another question, but this is it. No, this is the point I would give. If you go to a hospital and you see a doctor who spent 20 years of their life, they care about their job. They really are. Some doctors do. And they help remove the cancer from your loved one's brain. And you walk in there and all you want to do is praise God.
Come on.
And you don't realize that the person right there just spent so many crying nights, sweaty nights, bloody times of their life trying to figure out how to get into that brain without killing that human being and help save their life. But you want to keep attributing it to some type of thing out there that, Absolutely. The tangible things that are closest to us, we're blind to that. We don't realize that we need to get reconnected to the human near us and not try to put it to the thing out there that you're just projecting. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. And we have a super chat, so I'm going to pull that up in a few, but I agonized for nearly a decade before actually telling my story and deciding to do the work that I wanted to do when I started deconverting. And it was mainly because I knew that the question that I'd get most often is, why do you do this? Why would you want to, if you don't believe in a God anymore, if God is not telling you to do it, if you're not trying to keep people out of hell or you're not trying to keep people out, get people in heaven, why would you continue to do this? And I remember writing this down. It's the people, stupid. That's why I do it. When I look back over humanity, like everything that has brought us this far, and I know I'm kind of drawing a painting with a broad brush here, but our humanity has done so much for us. And much of that got abstracted through religion, because then it's like God paid your rent. And it's like, well, no, Aunt Susie paid your rent, It's like, God healed grandma. Well, no, the doctor came in and did such and such. And so once that abstraction is kind of removed, and I know for some, you still keep the God language, but for me, it immediately becomes, I just don't need it anymore, because now I can see the people and I really want to appreciate the people. And so I appreciate you for hitting that. I'm going to hit this super chat real quick.
Yeah,
Let's see what we got.
Send in your super chats, fam.
Send them in. All right, y'all know I got old people's eyes, so if I read this wrong, don't be getting mad at me. These glasses are big on purpose, okay? Okay, so this looks like Cheryl. Thank you for those $20. You said 4 years ago, after getting a PhD, go, Cheryl. In biblical studies, I bumped into MythVision plus my biblical worldview. I took this past year off YouTube to study, and I'm glad to be back. I owe MythVision a debt to my deconstruction. That is powerfully shared. Thank you for sharing that. You want to say anything on that, Derek?
I love Cheryl, and Cheryl's been around for a long time. Very, very intelligent, and has been so much cheering on what we're doing and being part of the community. And I'm thankful that she's here in your community as well and showing the support. And Cheryl, it means a lot to help people. A lot of people from the outside might see this and go, Oh, you're helping lead people away from the faith. Again, if you understand what I was saying about how I found myself, and that this has been
Mhm.
helpful for me. Like if I'll reverse it. I want to say one thing just to close that loop out. That is this. If finding Jesus saved you and really bettered your life and kept you
Come
from
on.
dying from the needle, find Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
That's my honest take. I'm not telling everyone you need to think like me. You need to believe like me. I'm saying whatever really helps you. It wasn't helping me, and I wasn't living my full potential.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm being honest. So
Yeah.
Cheryl's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much, Cheryl. And you're right. At the end of the day, it becomes workability. I've known Derek for a good little while. I told him on the phone a few times that I've talked to him. He's the only person in the community that I'll really like talk to on the phone, because when I talk to Derek, he's a human being. Like, and that's who I prefer to talk to. As humans. But no, I love that, because I know my goal is, and it doesn't seem that Derek's goal is to lead people away, is to provide resources for people who are trying to figure it out. If what you're doing works for you, fine. That is what it is. But for those of you that it doesn't work for, that's why our content exists. And it looks like we got another super chat, so I'm gonna make sure I get him while we got him.
Distract us. I'm
Yes,
cool.
distract us as all you want. Oh,
Yep.
this is Captain to teach people to teach people that they are creating hell. I love it. Thank you, Captain.
Yeah. Captain's on point there. I just did a video on the origins of hell, and you might find interesting is this going back to volcanoes and imagining what the ancient humans would have thought, seeing what was once a permanent foundation out of nowhere, the most unbelievable natural phenomenon before their own lives, a massive eruption like that happens, and all the lava, the fire, the burning of the forest that takes place, that would have easily, I would imagine, conceptually be the origin and the roots for why someone would construct a fiery afterlife in the underworld down in the earth, right? So we want people to not be fear hell, because I heard this another thing in the AA meeting, and then we get to the next super chat is I heard one guy, I spoke and I was crying, palms were sweating, I was withdrawn, I was 7 days off heroin, and I was like, I need help. Someone help me. My name's Derek, and I'm a struggling addict and alcoholic. Wow. And this guy goes, listen, man, he said, religious people are religious because they don't want to go to hell. But he said, spiritual people are spiritual because they've been to hell and they don't want to go back. And now, I like that. If you take spiritual and you just kind of take it as someone who's been through some shit and then says, hey, I came out, the light is shining, and I found myself, and I found joy and freedom without the bondage, the chains of needing this religion. Cool. I found that quite a clever way to deal with hell. You know what I mean? Because I've been there, bro. You have too.
That's it. Oh, I love it. Thank you for that. And thank you, Captain. Let's see. We now also have Stephen, or that might be Stephen, or that might be Stephanie. Y'all make sure I don't get this right. I'm gonna say Stephen. You are great at destroying lies. Keep at it until you find the truth that works for you. Big Bang is still a lie, and Redshift is a mirage. Oh man.
Thank you for the super chat. Obviously, Big Bang, we don't even know for sure that the universe started. Okay. And this is like, there are different hypotheses, if you will, that are floating out amongst theoretical physicists, but could have started. Could have, multiverse could be the, who knows what really is. Maybe we find out one day. I don't know how we would. This is way above my pay grade, bro. Like,
absolutely.
I would just call a physicist. I'd be like, hey, what do you think of this?
Yeah, maybe we'll get Neil deGrasse Tyson on and have him talk about it.
Bro, he's one of my favorites, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, I love him. I love him. My oldest son is actually going into physics, and so he's grown up like reading a lot of his stuff and some others, and so it's really exciting. Really exciting. My mind don't go that fast, so I'm smart, but I ain't that kind of smart.
Yeah.
Excuse me, y'all. All right, and we got another super chat from Captain. Let's see here. A leader of a country says the people are God. And as a person who considers myself a leader, I'm not mad at that at all. And that kind of calls back to what Derek just said himself, is that God thing is that thing that's on the inside of you. It's the humanity. And then as a leader, like, I'm not going to get into politics, but as a leader, that should be our call, to serve and support the people that put us in position. And so I love that. All right. So is that let me see here.
I got one comment here. You got another one here. Let me just make one comment about people are God. When I went to an AA meeting to pick up my 5-year chip, I wanted to celebrate. I earned it. I felt like, you know what, man, you did it. So I went in there and I knew everyone speaking in religious language. When you go in those groups, there's kind of that religious language like we're doing right now, right? And me and you, we would posit this probably in a psychological way, but either way, I went in there and when I went to speak and I just wanted to give people hope, I said, well, my God, and I used God, right? I said, my God is an acronym, group of drunks.
Wow.
Group of drunks. I said, it's the group of drunks that saved me. Wow. And like I reinterpreted God right in front of the face. And dude, everyone was just like, you know what? And they didn't care. That's the other cool thing about groups that allow diversity. It's not there. There is some cultic kind of shit that goes on in the AA, NA. Sure. Trust me, man. I've been there. I get it. But there's a lot more diversity. And I think if you foster a group that has more of that complexity, that's better than here's my rules. This, here's our dogma. And you better check off these boxes or else. And oh my God, it don't matter if you're an atheist, a theist, an agnostic, every human group does this. We have to check ourselves not to be that way. Don't do that. Don't be the thing you hate. You know what I'm saying?
Come on now. Yeah. Preach. That's one of the reasons why, like with Bridge City, I've made it very clear. Yes, I am an atheist, but Bridge City is not an atheist organization, nor is it built exclusively for atheists. It's built for people who want to do belonging without certainty, belonging without pretending, belonging without performance. When we had our event in Southern California last year, and I'm there with my little group, and they're like, all right, so what is it? What is our shared mythology? And I was like, what? Like, well, we got to have a shared mythology that we rally around. And I'm like, and I get that's that knee-jerk reaction, because many times people think that that's what people are gathering around at church. But most people who go to church don't give a damn about the theology. It's the one, they don't really care. They're there for something different. But I knew that was important to them, so I gave them a shared mythology. Very simple. What is it? 2 words. People matter. That's it. That's our shared mythology. Why do we do any of this? Just because people matter, man. And I think I've shared on my channel plenty of times. I do my work because I have kids and they have to live in this world, and I want them to be able to live in a world where they are safe and free to be themselves. And so that's why I create the content that I do. And let's see here. We got one more. Look at there.
Malcolm
Thank you, 20. That's Patrice. That is Patrice Lumumba on there.
Oh, wow.
24-3KM. $9.99. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, that's Pan-Africanist revolutionary. That's my world.
Thank you. Yeah. Hey, I don't know this one. You know what I'm saying? I'm learning, man.
Hey, we are all learning. No, thank you so much for that. All right, so we'll jump back into some more questions until we get some more coming in. All right, so like most people, when they're in the Bible, it's a devotional experience for them. You read the Bible to demonstrate your devotion to God, to your faith, to your religion. Do you remember when it started shifting from devotion to investigation? To like, okay, no, I believe this, to now, no, I want to verify this. And not even investigation like I'm trying to disprove it, but because I've heard you say, like, I just want to have the most honest version of my faith possible. How did you get to that point where you shifted from devotion to investigation? Or I want this to be the right thing.
I think the first church I ultimately you could call me a member of, even though I wasn't signed member. Later, I became a PCA Presbyterian and got really excommunicated legally. Like it got real. That was later. The first church I went to was a King James. This is the same Bible from when I went there. It's the old, this is my Derek Bible. You know what I mean? And it was King James onlyist. We spoke in tongues. We did Holy Ghost filled prophesy.
Yes.
And we were in it, man, tambourines and all, house church. And we were really, really sucked into the truth. It was also very strange. I mean, this is a woman pastor, which was odd. Usually you're like, okay.
Especially for KJV only. Yeah.
Yeah. They were very much in that holy, like almost a Billy Hinnish type of, movements that were going on at the time. And I remember we also celebrated some of the Jewish holidays along with, it was wild, bro. This was like a hodgepodge of stuff, right?
Yes.
And she would tell us line upon line, precept upon precept. And she would say, no one's teaching it properly. We are. So that as a young 13-year-old, 12, 13-year-old in there now getting saved, getting baptized in a pool in the backyard, now getting filled with the Holy Spirit, and they're laying on hands and they're speaking in tongues. They're all speaking in tongues until I do it, which I just realized eventually I got rewarded. It was a reward system for doing it. They taught me how to speak in tongues. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And there wasn't no Holy Ghost. It was just me. Then eventually I'm rolling on the ground. We're all doing all sorts of shit. You know what I mean? And it's fun. It was fun. We're playing life. And what ends up happening is I meet friends. I'm at a public school. Those friends are Christians. They don't think speaking in tongues is true. These are planting the seeds of other Christians that told me your Christianity isn't accurate. So now I'm like, what? But I still hold on for a while. Eventually, you bump into a new type of church, or you go decide I must check something else out. You hear something from another person another man of God reading from a book or whatever on TV. The list goes on, and you start hearing how diverse their beliefs are. And you want to have the correct belief. You want to know that what you're saying and believing is true. So it creates an intellectual, it entices you to do an intellectual investigation, which causes you to now take theology more seriously so that you can be accurate with the word of God. Because all those experiences that we've had in church with those things I said we've been projecting, we believe are real, need to be connected properly to the source and have accurate understanding of that proper source that I've been projecting the whole time. And that's what led me to, I think, look at the Bible through a more intellectual, rigorous lens. And how do I properly understand the theology? The problem is the Bible's not univocal. I didn't know that. So now I'm dealing with one book that's supposed to teach one theological lesson, and it's got a million theological lessons that don't all align and don't agree with each other. And so I'm in this pickle trying to understand the Bible. And I didn't understand Christians who weren't. The ones that said, hey, I was born a Southern Baptist. And I go, how old are you? 30. Have you ever been to another church? No, my parents just raised me in this church. I'm like, and you still believe the same things you were taught when you were a kid? Yeah. And I go, why aren't you questioning the thing you were born into? Like, why didn't you stop and investigate that and change your views? And they're like, oh, I'm in the right views. This is the correct understanding of scripture. And it's like, damn, bro, I've been through 10 other versions already. You're still on the first one. It's like, what's going on with you? You know what I mean?
No, like that was something that was very like, I don't want to say disappointing, but just like surreal for me coming out on the other side, is realizing like, dude, for the majority of my relationship with religion, with Christianity, I wasn't even trying to get deeper. It was just like, nah, this is it. I'm living off of that borrowed certainty. This is what my denomination says things are, until I switch to a new denomination. And then now it's just, this is what this denomination says. And so it wasn't until getting to the end that I was like, oh, well, you can kind of search this stuff. You can research it. But I think a part of me believed that it would be impossible. Like, I think a part of me believed that all of the information was gone and you could only take it by faith, that there was no real, there was no history, that there was no rabbit trail that you can follow. And then once I started following that rabbit trail, it became like, wait, I've had mentors who lead churches that are like 45,000 members strong. And I'm like, why is all you know is the 66 books? I'm a little concerned now, because now it's a question of genuineness, right? If I seriously believe this with my whole heart, and this is the most important belief system to me in the world, this is the most important belief to me in the world, why haven't I taken it seriously enough to actually research it and understand it? And that to me was like, oh yeah, I'm done. Nobody's taking this serious. But no. Man, so you transitioned from Christianity to Jesus mythicism, and then into a broader exploration of the historical Jesus question. Where are you today on that spectrum of the historicity of Jesus? Or is he myth? Is he real? And I'm not asking you to tell us what we should think about it, because you've always been very open-ended. But I am curious to know, like, where do you stand on Jesus now that you're no longer a Jesus worshiper per se? Do you feel like he was a real guy? Do you feel like he was a mythicism? Or I'm an atheist, atheist. I don't really care if he lived or not. But I'm just curious to what you think.
Yeah, so you're right. I went through, Jesus was a real human and was God in the flesh. He was perfect.
Yeah.
He was God in the flesh, Trinitarian. And then gradually, what I think started to cause me to view the Bible differently was comparative mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Once I started seeing stories like Samson, and I compared it to Heracles and Melkart and Gilgamesh, and I started going, what the hell is going on with strongman motifs in other myths? You know what I mean? And they got a thing for women. Okay, like that's a common trope, like in these stories. So I'm like, okay, they're doing impossible feats that average humans cannot do in all these stories. They're ripping barehanded, killing lions, literally, like ripping their mouths open, just like King David, just like Samson. Heracles does the same thing. You even have like the identification of bees in the myth. Also in Samson, like I found all sorts
in Samson,
of stuff,
that's right.
Samson has the honeycomb in the lion's corpse.
Yes.
And then of course you have the same in Heracles, similar things in lots of the myths of Heracles. And there's many stories about Heracles that aren't all the same. So I start looking into all of this, right? And I started then reading my Bible through what's called astrotheology lens. Because let me give you the Samson analogy and tell you why I started wondering if what we're reading all along, we did not know what we were understanding. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, I'm doing this investigation. So the name Samson in Hebrew is Shimshon. It means little son. It's the sun. Samson is the sun. He has 7 dreadlocks of hair.
Come on.
Okay. 7 dreadlocks. How many days in the week, right? 7, right? So 7. the sun and the 7 days is how I started looking at this more like, okay, what's going on with this? He's the sun. And by the way, the Hebrew there for Shimshon is related to Shamash, the sun god, who literally hands the all codes to Hammurabi. Okay. So there is an etymological relationship between the name Shimshon for Samson and Shamash. He's the sun in the story. And if you think of it through a cosmic lens, not on the ground with Delilah and get caught up in the details, because the details are there and we do want to get caught up in them. Think heavenly for a second, okay?
Yeah.
Here you have a man, an anthropomorphized story of a sun with its 7 days. And if the sun's rays are cut, okay, then it loses its strength. Yeah. So if the sun is cut off, then the sun's power, its strength will no longer be shining forth. You get in the story, you get like the sun scorches the field, this idea of the fox's tails being lit, and he runs to the field, symbolizing the sun scorching the field. Maybe this is the heat of the summer. You have Delilah, who gets paid in silver, which, by the way, is the color of the moon. Okay, so you have this love-hate relationship going on between the moon, right? And I start thinking, okay, what's going on here? He tells a riddle at his marriage of his first wife before they ended up killing her, that if they can guess the riddle, that he'll give them 30 clothing, like articles of clothing to whoever at the wedding can discover. 30 days in a lunar month, okay? Yeah. So you have 30. There's this numbers of 30. You have that kind of the cosmic significance. Well, finally, the sun gets defeated over this beautiful Delilah, who's the moon, and what ends up happening is he gets his eyes gouged out. The sun is blind. So I've heard this from Manly P. Hall, other esotericists in the past, and comparative mythologists who thought this is a cosmic story anthropomorphized. So now Samson's blind because they gouge out his eyes, and he's grinding mill in like a underground kind of basement area. Yes. This is the winter solstice, okay? So during the winter, you're grinding your mill. He's underground. The sun is not shining its strength any longer. Okay. That's what happens in the winter. The days get shorter and you're in the winter. So then there's finally at the end, he asks for strength one last time, pushes the pillars, of course. Next thing you know, the temple of Dagon collapses, 3,000 people die. So I started reading this and go, what if other areas of the Bible are really on face value, really trying to tell you something else?
Yes.
So I was looking to mythology and I was realizing the Bible has comparative mythology, even at face value. But then I was also going deeper thinking, is there a cosmic story in this? So I went to Jesus and I saw the sun, the bright light, surrounded by 12 followers, the 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay. And I thought maybe those 12 signs are entering the house of the sun. And through the narrative of the Gospels, it's trying to tell us a story about the cosmic one, which is the sun and the 12 signs of the zodiac. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there may be something to this. The problem that I found in this over time, when I really wanted to just try to argue,
yes, sir,
is that methodologically, you can't prove these interpretations. You can't really anchor them solid. Okay.
Yeah.
That was subjective. Like even the Delilah stuff and the sun stuff, there's something to it and we know it, but like, I can't nail this shit down like I want in a concrete way. So I think that there is astrotheology even to this day, but I can't nail it down and I don't argue it because it can't prove it. You see what I'm saying?
No, I absolutely love that, because I'd say one of the biggest distinctions between me and you when we were believers is you definitely became a scholar. Like you became a scholar of your faith. I remained a hermeneutist, where that has been my primary training, to interpret it in a way that makes sense to today's audience. And hermeneuticism is much easier than scholarship because it doesn't really require that type of methodology. And there are a lot of things that I've wanted to attach myself to. I was right there with you with the astrotheology with Jesus and the 12. And then, of course, like coming to the same place you did, I just couldn't attach a methodology to it to actually defend it. So a question I have, just pulling on your scholarship a little bit, what do you, in your journey, what's probably one of the most common mythological comparisons to Jesus that you think is an overreach? Because I know even in my culture,
not an overreach,
that you think is an overreach. Because we hear so many of them that is Dionysus, Mithra, even Heru, or how do people say it who are not Kemetic? It's Heru in ancient Egypt. Horus, Horus. Yeah. You know, which out of the ones you've come across, and I'm almost positive you've come across a lot more than I have.
Yeah.
Which ones do you think is probably most likely just an overreach?
Oh, an overreach. I mean, there's going to be shared commonality amongst almost all of them. The overreach becomes when you almost, okay. You're going to find differences in every one of them. Every one of them is different. Let's get that out of the way, because to pretend that there's Xerox copies is completely mistaken.
Thank you.
And get this, every other myth from that other myth is also different. So it doesn't do anything to save yours. Okay. I'm just making that point. So, but one of the most common that I find, and I think is a real stretch, is when people might jump back to some ancient Mesopotamian god and try to say, I think the gospel's borrowed directly from this ancient Mesopotamian deity or something. I mean, look, I hear some really conspiracy theory level stuff in the comments sometimes about connecting things, right?
Yes.
And that's not as common. You probably hear like the Horus stuff. And
very much.
There's overlap. There is overlap. It's not a stretch to overlap and see the parallels. There are parallels. The parallels are not identical in every way. There is a shared mythic theme that often does happen, and they are common. And there are mythologists that do this. This is not Derek Lambert. This is not Darante just hip firing. There are PhD experts who've analyzed this stuff and thought, you know what? There is something to this. Now, I wouldn't make a genetic argument, they might say. I won't say that Jesus copied Horus or copied this exact myth. But to pretend it's not swimming in the same soup is ludicrous, in my opinion, once you start investigating this stuff. And so that would be the way I would want to answer that, I think. To your question about mythicism and what I was getting at, and I kind of got sidetracked to give you like some build up to it. Is I think today I went full blown mythicist. I thought it blew my mind that anyone would even doubt he existed at all. Like I didn't know this. I'm like Bubble Boy. You ever saw the movie Bubble Boy?
Yes.
Mom
Jake
says,
Gyllenhaal.
Mama says, if this pops, you're dead. You can't exit this bubble. His whole life, and finally, spoil the movie. That bubble pops, okay?
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. When it pops, he realized, like, I'm not dead. So what happened? So for me, the bubble popped. I was told, I never heard that anyone really believed that. And when I heard it barely in the Christian church, that there were people who thought maybe Jesus didn't exist, I thought, this is the dumbest thing I ever heard in my life. Yes. And then I became one.
Wow.
And the reason I became one is because once you start to see, once you actually read some sources and realize that there are other people who do not exist, they never existed.
Yes.
I mean, if you want to be like, some people in the ancient world who thought that maybe Heracles was an ancient bodybuilder. Yeah. Way back, this guy was lifting weights and they made a myth and it grew into a god and all that. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. Euhemerus is the one who did this. Once you see that there were mythic people who never existed, who in their stories were born of a divine father and a mortal mother. I should pull this up. I should pull up something. Do. I should read you something here because this is bona fide PhD. Dennis McDonald has shown some overlaps between
I'm
Heracles.
Give you the stage for this. Let's go.
Yeah, no problem. And sorry, I'm sorry, I got to scroll a second here to find it.
Oh, you're fine.
No worries. We're getting there. Bear with me, fam. This is an important parallel just to show you an overlap. And it doesn't even mean that Jesus copied directly from Heracles, what I'm about to present here. It just shows you that they are swimming in the same waters and maybe potentially did find overlap and said, hey, I'm going to make Jesus better than Heracles. Because he's not making him exactly like. The goal is to make him better. That's the point. People miss it. They're like, oh, you want them to copy. It's like, no, Genesis is clearly copying Mesopotamian stuff, but it's trying to make it better and it's trying to critique.
It's an evolution,
Yes. So people miss out on the fact that, the goal in copying is to outdo. It's competitive in nature.
Come on now. That's actually a really good point.
Yeah, like why would Jesus come in the world? Think about this. Why would you be marketing your Jesus to the Greco-Roman world and not want him to be somewhat like what they're already aware of, but way better?
Yes.
That's the goal. Yes. You want them to. So I think it's important we pay attention to that. Man, this is way down here. So sorry. Bear with.
It's fine. Hey, y'all, this is live. This is what happens when we go live.
Here it is. Concerning Hercules, Heracles in the Greek, Hercules in Rome. So when the same deity gets renamed to Hercules, Dennis McDonald offers these observations in his book, Christianizing Homer. Have it on the shelf behind me. The careers of Heracles and Christ display tantalizing parallels. Both heroes had divine fathers, Zeus and God. And God being probably Yahweh, depends on the Christian you ask, because Marcion wouldn't have said that. But anyway, both have divine fathers and mortal mothers, Alcmene and Mary, whose actual husbands, Amphitryon, Joseph in the Bible, were from royal stock and accepted the boys as their own sons. Villains, Hera and Herod, weird how similar in English they sound, tried to slay the babies in their cradles. By serpents, by swords. One's by serpents, one by swords. But both were spared by precautious strength, by precautious flight. Early in life, both youths traveled to a desolate place to be tempted with a choice between easy vice and arduous virtue. Both chose virtue. The careers of both heroes consisted largely of extraordinary ordeals that they overcame through supernatural means. Having acceded to the wills of their divine fathers, both died violent deaths. The bodies of neither could be found. Both became gods. Both appeared to mortals after their deaths, and both ascended to heaven in a cloud. Just as Heracles conquered wild beasts, including the hound Cerberus, whom he fetched from Hades, hell, Jesus conquered demons and preached in hell. Greek philosophical schools transformed Heracles and the giant brute into a paragon of virtue because he had endured his trials stoically. So many additional details exist between these two heroes that one probably should relate both Heracles and Christ to a common herocology, a hero kind of mythology category. But also at the end, for those who don't know, the Stoics and the Cynics saw Heracles as the most virtuous man who ever was. And they would wear real historical Stoics and Cynics, specifically Cynics, would wear really harsh clothing, like rough, fur and itchy kind of outfits. They did not want comfort. They wanted the pains, the hard life. They wanted hard life. And they would debate with Stoics who kind of wanted a hard-ish, but yet the pleasures of wearing shoes. They wore shoes. They had debates over shoes, bro. The Cynics would say, we aren't wearing shoes. We're going all the way. And the Stoics are like,
feet should
really?
hurt.
Come on. I mean, the shoes, really? You're going to go that far? Anyway, so it's just really funny to see how the mythology influenced real schools of philosophy. And so I look at Jesus today, and I'm giving you in a nutshell, I think 60%. I lean there was a guy, okay, that got mythologized. I lean there was probably a Jesus, but I get it. Do I need to say more? I understand the struggle because he's been so worked over. He has become so legendized, theologized that he's elusive. To get the real guy is a bit elusive. It's difficult.
Yep. No, I 100% get that. It kind of goes back to what you said earlier. Like, it's possible that it could be there. We just don't have a methodology to get us there. And so I can see how some people like Dr. Bart reasonably says, no, I think he existed. And I can also see how others, like I think it's Dr. Carrier, who's like, nah, I don't think he existed at all. At the end of the day, it's going to boil down to hermeneutics, how we see the story, because we don't have the ability to get to the root of it yet. And maybe we'll get to it. I did miss a super chat, so I want to honor Captain. He just says Christians stole Christmas. Okay, now I've talked about this a little bit before, but can I get some insight from you?
Yeah,
you're the expert on this, so tell me.
I'm not an expert on this. I'm not an expert. I want to say this though: there are experts who take a jab at this, and it's a mess. It's nothing. When you start investigating it, is easy.
That's right.
Nothing. I mean, very few things. The problem is this: we're talking the 200s and 300s of the Common Era. Christianity is already around. Christians were not attributing December 25th to Jesus till much later, hundreds of years after Jesus. Okay.
Yeah.
So somehow they came up with the date. All right. You just so happen to have Mithras also, and Sol Invictus, the invincible sun, which was a pagan version of a solar deity, also being celebrated around the same period on December 25th, having this, winter solstice birth. And Jesus ends up with the same one, right? So the question is, and this is where the real debate lies, is did Christians independently come up with landing at this date? And you might go, why would you suppose it might have been independent? I don't know it was. The Histories of Religion School thinks that Christians did, lift this from the Sol Invictus in the popular Greco-Roman world and apply this to Jesus. Those who are part of what's called the calculation theory see that early church fathers were calculating. They were trying to find out numbers and trying to get ways to put when Jesus was born, when he got baptized, when he died, and what day of the year. And they ended up landing, some of them, on different days. It wasn't one day. And one of these early fathers around the 200s lands on December 25th as a potential date for Jesus's birth, but also his death landing right there on Easter, which is odd because it's the exact same date as Attis, a whole nother god that dies and rises after 3 days. I kid you not. I'm not making this up. This is not zeitgeist. I'm not just pulling this out of my ass. Claudius instituted the worship of Attis worldwide in Rome in the 50s. There are primary sources for this. Go look this shit up. You will be blown away to find out the amazing, interesting overlaps that go on. I'm not saying one copied from the other. The soup is there and everyone's drinking it. Okay. So when you get to this, calculation model, you have to ask a bigger question. What if Sol Invictus and Christians were all swimming in cosmic ways in which they went, our guys got to land on that holy sacred day.
Yes.
So did one copy the other? Maybe. And there are good arguments that they did. But then there's the other idea that like they are intentionally trying to put their guy at the most sacred day of the cosmic year when the sun is at the lowest spot. And 3 months later, life, fertility, that's why we have the Easter bunny, and also why resurrection takes place. When life is now back, baby, resurrection in nature has happened. So you place your guy right there at the nature in which life in the real world comes back to life. And so these myths reflect, I think, a real natural phenomena, and they're told in an anthropomorphic way. And so it's very, very complicated, but I don't know what the answer is.
But no, I love that because I think you gave a lot of insight, and I'm inclined to agree. I think that's one of the reasons why the stories match up so often, why they overlap so often, because ultimately they're using the same muse, they're using the same inspiration piece for their stories. So even if you aren't intentionally borrowing, even if you aren't intentionally copying, if you're setting your dates and you're setting your rituals and you're setting your stories around the real world that you live in, then you're going to be pulling from those same cosmological, geological events that you're experiencing that other people are. Me as a fiction author, when I sit down to write, if I'm trying to write a person who is a good guy or a hero, I live in a society that has already defined what a hero is. So if I want that person to be received as a hero in my book, then I have to make sure that I'm paying attention to what does society say a hero is. So that makes perfect sense to me. Like that was good.
Richard Miller, in his book, Resurrection and Reception in Early Christianity, that's his point. It's not only the cultural, but the linguistic framework that gives him the signals that his story is modeled after an age-long, we're talking 800 years plus, what's called the translation fable trope. And this is the idea that translation fables, he goes through in chapter 2 and he accounts for all of these different stories that go, and he has like a whole catalog. It's like an entire library of like 70-something characters that he goes through. And there are 15 tropes, 15 themes that they're sub-themes that appear. For example, and this is technical scholarly language. I've dumbed it down before in a video, but number one is heinous and ignoble injustice rectified by translation. So the guy dies a pretty gruesome death. Something bad happens in the story where he dies or she dies, and it's not good. But don't worry, the story doesn't end badly. Like the god saves that person, or the body goes missing. They become a god, so they're rewarded through a really heinous act that happens. Metamorphosis, Jesus experiences this as well. Vanished, missing body. The body of the person goes missing. They go to the tomb, it's empty. His body's not there, right? We know about the story. But that story, out of 70 something, and I really analyzed his book, out of 77 or 78 examples he gives, 50 something of them, 56, I think, if my memory serves me correctly, the body is missing. A missing body is so important in the translation fable trope that is in the Greco-Roman world that you would not, more probable than not, you're going to write a story where your guy goes missing or your girl goes missing, and you know what that means. That means they have become a god. And in fact, according to some legends, some stories, we don't know if this is history or not, Alexander the Great was so deeply embedded in this. We know Alexander the Great, the conqueror that conquered the whole Persian
whose story
Empire.
includes some of those tropes itself. Yeah.
Exactly. In one of the accounts, it says that he attempted, knowing he was going to die, he attempted to drown himself and threw himself into the river so that his body would disappear, so that then people would deify him and worship him. So
that's
like
wild.
The trope was so powerful that people would enact, according to some cases, try to have their bodies go missing. So when people say that the disciples could not have stolen the body, I think they underestimate the power of the trope, because if I want you to venerate my guy and I'm a cult leader in the cult and you're paying me money and I'm not fishing in Galilee anymore, you're handing me money. I'm making money off of you. Do you honestly think there's not a chance I would steal that body? I'm providing for my family. I make more money than I ever did in my whole life. Like, I'm not saying that's what happened. Okay. No. What I'm saying is that's more likely than he really rose from the dead, in my view.
Yes.
There's so many plausible explanations, but bro, this gets deep. There's so much here.
No, but see, I love that because, and again, this kind of goes back to something I said earlier, is that once we kind of remove the divinity from it, it allows us to appreciate the humanity. And when you appreciate the humanity, you look at people, you know, I'm not a person who necessarily believes that the disciples, Mary, or any of them were necessarily real. They could be, I don't know. But when I now read their stories, I can now read it from a different perspective. And so, like, no, if the guy that I thought was going to be the guy and I forsaken my family to follow this guy, and I'm at the tomb and he's dead, I'm going to hide that body, because like I've just upended my whole life to follow this. And I'm likely going to be like a social cast out if this guy doesn't somehow be the guy that he's supposed to be. And so I have to do whatever it takes to kind of protect myself in that world. And so that's really good insight, man. I appreciate that. It is absolutely an option.
and you know what the biggest argument, they go, that's BS. The Sanhedrin, the leaders in the Jewish communities, they would have just went and showed that you guys stole. They would have like proven this wrong somehow or whatever. Or the other argument is they wouldn't have died for a lie. And I just say, guys, check out Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith got himself killed, and yet he did die for a lie, according to many people who think that Mormonism's a lie, right? So if Joseph Smith's willing to go, it's not just his death that happens. 150, 200 people in a mob come to kill him. He also was in a different state before he was in Nauvoo, where they got real persecution. People were killed. Mormons were killed by locals in that state back in the 1820s and 30s. They'd been persecuted for their beliefs. So, you know, you might go, well, Joseph Smith made it up. Bro, have you interviewed Paul yourself? Can you go back and know? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Oh, dang, this is good. Looks like we got another super chat. Let's see here. Thank you, Bakan Pan. I'm not gonna mess up the last part. So
Danny,
thank
just
you
say
so
Danny.
much. Danny, thank you. Thank you, Danny. $5 says, I've read that Mary and Anna were part of the Essene priesthood family as well. Anna prophesied over Mary, coming from Luke. I feel this is historical. What are your thoughts on this, Derek?
I don't know about the Essene priesthood stuff, and I would say I'm very cautious on Luke's telling of things, being as late as Luke does get. I mean, I'm already I question Mark's stuff. You know me. But you know, that doesn't mean that there's not a memory. Okay. I can't prove it. When we start getting into, I think something might be historical. We have to obviously run that with a real cautious say, hey, I'm not sure. I'm not certain, but you know, I think this. Yeah. So that's my thoughts, Bakken. I don't really know what to do with it. I think the birth narrative stories and stuff that are in those gospels are legend. And so what comes with that might be part of that package. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely get that. And then we got Pat 907. Thank you for the $5. Once you start using your individual thinking powers, I like that. Like Captain Planet, when our powers are combined, you know, funny how quickly the church abandons you. Yes. Ironically, when the veil is removed, shit gets more clearer. I couldn't agree more.
You know, this is actually a really good one, Pat. And I say that because I think Darante and me, some of the questions you had ready for me today make sense of this, because we don't want a community that's trying to harm people at all.
Yes.
But I do want to say this, that when we did not vocalize or agree with all of the doctrines we found within the community that we were once in, we became the enemy.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, what did that do for you? Did you then gravitate closer and want to repent at their feet and beg for their fucking mercy? Or did you find a way to divorce yourself from that, you know, situation? And that applies on all ends. That applies within religion and without, and every group.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's important that we self-check ourselves here, Darante, that we don't become check these lists, believe like me, do as I say, and do. You have to follow me and be exactly like me in order to fit into where I'm at. And I think that your mythology, I think that the dogma of people matter, that's a dogma that I think is just fundamental. And I think everyone should be able to agree with that. Nobody's going to quarrel over that, in my opinion. And if they do, they're not, hey, cool. This community is not for you. Like, clearly,
that's right.
If people don't matter, no problem. Go to the next building, but we don't want to do what happened to us,
Yeah. That's actually why at like when my channel really started booming and my Discord had jumped to like over 600 people in it, I actually closed the whole thing down because I didn't like the behavior. I didn't like what it was attracting. And that's just not something that I wanted to recreate. And so I sat down with my mods and I said, listen, we have people policing each other, running purity tests, and like, these are fucking strangers. You don't know these people. You don't know their lived experience. How about get to know someone first? At this moment, we are recreating, and this was my thought at that time, not about anybody else, just about what I was seeing in my own community, is that we're recreating that fundamentalism that you have to do things the way I do things or you don't fit. And I'm like, man, no. My goal is to do everything I can to decrease harm and to increase well-being. Anything that does not get me to that end, I am highly uninterested in. And so thank you for that call out. Dang it. Did we get another super chat? Look here, they're going to keep us going. All right, then. Fine. Y'all aren't going to let me ask my questions. I'm not mad. All right, we got Skepticus channel. I love that name, by the way. Thank you for the $5. The story of all New Testament gets a lot more interesting when you allow yourself to see the written tug of war that's happening between those doing the writing. Yes.
Love it.
Come on, talk to us, Derek.
Yeah, this to me, you think the analogy I give, if you watched MythVision, you know how I am. Let's say we go to a David Blaine magic show, Darante, and someone is in the corner. I always like to make it seem like they're up to no good. They're wearing a hoodie. They go, psst, hey, psst. And you're like, what's up? I'm about to watch the show. What's up? And then they go, do you want to see how the magic trick really works? And I'm like, part of me's scared because I don't want to take away the magic. But part of me also is like curious. I want to know the truth of how they did the magic trick. But I have to ask a question because I'm scared. Is it going to ruin it for me? And they say, no, actually, it's going to make you even more blown away because now you're going to see the trick. And then you're going to actually realize all these people believe the trick, or most of them think it's real in some way. Some of them know it's not, but they wonder how the trick works. Why does it psychologically work for people? And all that brings in a whole nother thing, like how did you do the trick and the sleight of hand and all that goes in it. So that analogy I give for the Bible, once you see through between the lines, you recognize, okay, these are humans and they're struggling with each other. And there's so much, the text doesn't line up. It's not univocal. There's problems, there's contradictions. There's a whole nother avenue of magic you're unraveling, because we once stood in the audience and just said, yes, amen. Amen. And then now we're looking at it going, you mean to tell me Matthew changed Mark? He literally says the opposite of what Mark says? Bro, what's going on here? You mean Paul talked about those super apostles?
Yes.
He wasn't happy with those super apostles. Who are these people? So when you start dissecting the Bible, the game is even more fun to me than what it ever was when I was like, yes, Lord. Amen. Yeah. Put it on a show, Anyway, that's my side. My thought.
I love it. We had two more come in right behind that. We got Danny. Danny is back. Thank you for that $10. Good. Thank you. He says, if I may add, it's not the miracle portion, but rather a rewrite. The secret father of Jesus was a high priest of her community. Luke preserves the existence of her community. Luke blends Essenes and Paul.
I need to look at this. I've never looked at this and tried to think through this lens, Bakken. Be curious to know what sources made you think this way about Luke. If you have any primary sources, I'd love for you to email them to me or something, because I'd like to see what makes you connect those dots. I do know the high priest plays a role, but it's usually John the Baptist's father, the high priest. in that narrative about the birth, and he silent. God has him silent. Finally, he names his son John. But as far as that goes, I'm not really sure what to do with it. I really don't know what to say. Sorry, I don't know more about this. This is interesting, though.
If you happen to have that source material, just hit us back again, and we'll come right back at it. Yeah. And then we got one more. Inside Out Studios Online. What's up, friend? Thank you for the $5 super chat. He says, "Is there anything original in the Bible?"
Yes.
Let's talk.
I would say everything's original.
Okay.
And everything is not.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it like this. If I saw you, let's say I'm wearing your glasses, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I rock a new pair of glasses, but they're different color. And they do something different on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
I used what you had, but I changed what you had, okay?
Yep.
Everything is recycled. This is mimesis on a human psychological level. If you're interested to check that out more, look at the mimesis theory by Rene Girard and check out how humans are related and communicate sociologically and stuff. But the Bible itself is rehashing things. If you're saying, is there a single thing that is unique that you haven't found anywhere else that you don't think has any connection? Bro, that would be a journey that I'd have to dig, bro. I can look at almost every episode of the Bible from Genesis, especially through Genesis to Exodus I mean, bro, the burning bush, Persian Zoroastrianism, they literally worship the fire. The fire is the divinity. Okay, that's why the fire in Moses' story, and this ain't me making this up. Go check out Gad Barnea. Look at the PhDs that I'm interviewing who are saying this much. Every episode in Genesis, I can find antecedents, parallels, overlaps in Egyptian, in Mesopotamian, in Canaan. I mean, bro, in Greek, I mean, there's so much. It's hard to find the unique. So let me reverse it and say, if there's anything authentically original, and what I think he means by that is there is not a single thing that has any kind of, like, I got to do some thinking because it's hard. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, but I think that, again, that kind of goes back to the thing that we've kind of hit at a few times throughout this conversation, is that, like, it's all copying the same world. Like you have this shared experience, and you're writing what you see, even if you're not trying to take it from somebody else. And so I love the way you open it up. Like, no, it is original because it's through their lens, it impacts their culture. They put their little swag on it. But as far as if you're asking if they were the first, that's hard, right? That's where it gets a little harder. What exactly makes it original? Like me, I struggle sometimes with even using the word create when people say you're a creator. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm a creator because I'm not, as much as I like to think my art and my stuff is just coming off at the top of my head. I'm a generator. Like, I'm getting data. I'm like overwhelmed with stuff. And all of that is what I'm actually putting back out in the world. So no, I love that. Great question. And I think even when I was in the movement, we got a super sticker. Thank you. Thank you for that super sticker. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone in MythVision, go subscribe to Darante, please. Please.
Hello. And I know I got less subscribers than MythVision, but everybody who's with Darante, go subscribe to MythVision too. All 5 of y'all. Go on over there.
No,
let me stop.
You better cut it out. You better cut that crap out, bro. Oh, I'm like, hold on. What did you say? I think it's Griscore.
Thank you for doing that for me, because I was struggling. I was trying to catch it. And honestly, when I say my eyes are bad, I'm not pretending. Like, if you ever see me driving without my glasses, no, I've chosen death that day. Okay, so let's not play.
I love it. Hey, dude, I love you, man.
Man, thank you, bro. Thank you, man. It's real love too. All right, we got Pat back. Derek, that magic analogy is on the money. Once you see, you can't. Come on, that's it. That's real talk. Thank you so much.
It doesn't steal away the wonder. That's what I'm trying to get. It makes it actually more fun to me.
Yes.
I saw your video, by the way, and if my channel's watching and they haven't seen did the 12 disciples exist and some of the series you've done, they need to go check that out, because I'm like, okay, you would never be asking that question, bro, if you didn't get told, want to see how the magic works? That's see what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Yes. Oh, man. And we got another one. Thank you, Dex Sports. Appreciate you for the $5 super chat. It says the right is obsessed with religion, and so were Confederates. How bad is religion for democracy. Okay, I'm gonna let you lead. I have some thoughts, but I'm gonna let you lead
Yeah.
first.
I mean, look, I don't know much on the historical level of like, I don't know what the statistics would be. I mean,
Mhm.
there's religion that I think a lot of progressive, very liberal approaches to religion. Okay, where it's
Yeah,
like, I don't think they're hurting anybody. You read
yeah.
a fortune cookie and you think maybe the fortune cookie is predicting, like, okay, you're a fortune cookie Christian. Cool, I like you. Okay, you're my favorite kind of Christian.
Mhm.
It's the kind that I think we're seeing even right now do some of the shit that's causing wars, that's causing us to be in a real bad spot. And that
Yes.
religion is not our fundamental mythology, people
Yeah.
matter kind of religion. And it concerns me that we're in a bad spot right now. But to answer this particular thing, I would say this, and I read this from Dr. Joshua Bowen in his book about slavery in the Bible. And the Confederates worked overtime, obviously, to defend this
Oh,
notion.
yes.
They had the Bible on their side, bro. The
Yeah.
ones who worked uphill against the Bible as Christians were sweating and saying it isn't the letter of the text. It's the meaning of the spirit of the text, not what the words on the page say.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunate because
Mhm.
this book, if you take it too serious, can radicalize people. It really
Absolutely.
can. You can read this and go, "Whoa!" Just like Islam, we've seen it with people in the Muslim community. We've seen it with other radical forms of religion. So I don't want to say all religion. Okay,
Mhm.
I do not want to be that person who just goes, "All religion must be," because some people aren't even believers and are
Yeah.
religious.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
I have a scholar friend. Those who don't know Justin Sledge from Esoterica, he identifies as an atheist. He's a religious Jew. He's
Yeah.
extremely progressive in his religious. And I asked him why. Why, man? You don't
Mhm.
believe it? He says, man, something about keeping a Sabbath, a Saturday, a ritual. He just needs a ritual in his life.
Yeah.
And so, how do you define religion too? That's a whole nother thing. But like, bro, I
Yep.
think that there is an obsession, and that obsession is what we're seeing with Christian nationalism right now. And I think that
Yeah.
they're spot on.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for the question, Dex. And I'll just add to that. I think one of the biases we have in the West is when we think of religion, we think of a specific type of religion that often excludes other manifestations of religion. And so that's why I'm a little careful to say, is religion bad? I'd rather get more specific. Authoritarian doctrines are
Yes.
bad. Divine command is bad. Those things are bad for democracy. And that was something I struggled with as a Christian, Derek. Like I remember being in services and people preaching about, like you can't move the idol into the temple, or then God is going to knock it down. And it's like, oh, so God is not very democratic, is he? Like, and you start beginning to realize, like, oh, if people really do believe that, and that is one of my concerns. That's one of the reasons why I do speak up against Christianity as much as I do, is because Christianity, in many of its forms, not all, right? But
Yeah.
in many of its forms, is a very authoritarian type belief system. Every knee shall bow, every tongue confess. Now, the interesting thing, though, is that Christianity is, as with like all type of religious persuasions, it's a double-edged sword. You have some people who lean into Jesus as a conquering king, and that's often what you see with what we now call the religious right. They're leaning into the conquering king type of trope. But then you have others who lean into the suffering savior, where for them, it's about being humble, it's about serving people. And
Mhm.
I hate to make the mistake of throwing them in the same bag,
I
which is
agree.
one of the things that I do caution us about today, because then you start fighting people who have the label, who don't actually have the character that you're fighting against. You're
Yeah.
fighting a character that doesn't exist within them. But it's a great question, and it's
Sure.
reasonable. We should all be asking it, but I want us to be very careful about not scapegoating religion itself. Let's get as specific as possible. What is it? There's a thing that I used to do with my kids just to kind of help them process thoughts. I'd point at something in the house and say, tell me what that is. And so, for example, I'd point at the rug and they'd say, well, that's a rug. I say, no, that's what we call it. What is it?
Mm.
And they say, well, it's a carpet. I said, nope, you're still up here. That's what we call it. What is it? And eventually they'd have to get down, okay, well, that's fabric, that's glue, that's plastic mesh. And it's like, yes, because our labels will often shortcut the way we see things. And we get so used to doing that, we'll do that with people. So now that I know your label, I think I know what you are. Oh, you're religious, so you must be this. And it's like, whoa, there are just way too many different manifestations. So I always encourage people to really get to know other people and just get as specific as you can.
I agree.
But thank you so much for that. And then we got another super sticker, and that is Sundorp. Am I getting that right? $1.99. So. Thank you, Sundorp. Appreciate you. Much love. And then Captain is back. I now know Captain's real name, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to throw anybody out there without permission. But is it right or like the Inquisition? The right or like the Inquisitions with their mess? Man, listen, we're living it real time. All I know is that my gas and milk is at an all-time high.
I have not seen, bro. You're telling me, man.
A bottle of Coca-Cola is like just a regular single size bottle of Coca-Cola is like $3 and something. Like, y'all know I drink alcohol, and I went to go get my Four Loko and get my wife a Coca-Cola, and her Coca-Cola costs the same amount as my Four Loko. I'm like, baby, maybe you're gonna have to start drinking.
Oh my goodness. That is so funny.
Oh man, wow. I'm sorry. Derek, they're not going to let us get through our questions, man. They're coming at us hard today, and I love every bit of it. Thank you all so much for supporting and asking questions. So we have Mr. Video Warrior. I think I got that right. $10. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate your support. Have you guys ever watched a video from a guy by the name William Donahue on YouTube? He has a very different take on the Bible and compares some of the stories to other mythological beliefs.
Oh yeah. I have. I've come across with William? I'm not familiar. Like, I didn't watch him. I've seen a few of his videos over time. But he's big into like numerology, as I'm looking right now on his channel. 302,000 subscribers. He's doing more of an esoteric kind of interpretation of the Bible. He is definitely not your fundamentalist. Okay. But he has, I would say he's looking for like symbolism and more allegory and all sorts of stuff like that within the Bible, which can be good. You know, he's defanging a lot of the literalism. But I've had a lot of people in my chat that thought, hey, this is an interesting guy. They comment about him periodically. I just wanted to make sure it was the right guy.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you, Mr. Video Warrior. And we have Danny's back, Bakan. All right, he says, and thank you for that $5. He says, Matthew with missing first two chapters existed. When do we get manuscripts in our record that has it? Could the Matthew version be based off of Luke's?
There are some scholars who think Matthean priority might be plausible. Most of the ones I've talked to lately are thinking Luke used Matthew. So your question with Matthew with missing first two chapters existed. I'm not sure if there might have been a Matthew without a birth narrative. I'm not really sure, because that's the narration. I believe the first two chapters of Matthew. Let me pull up my Bible here. I might as well just pull up my King James.
Pull up the word.
Yeah.
The living word.
Yeah. Let's see. Matthew, I think the first two are the birth narrative. And I think Bakan's question is it missing? Is there a version of Matthew that may be missing the genealogies and the first two chapters here? So now chapter 3, in those days came John the Baptist. I mean, I don't know a single scholar right now that thinks that Matthew's prologue, the birth narrative, didn't exist. I know scholars who think Luke's prologue was added. Mm-hmm. So there are some who thought that maybe Luke didn't write the first few chapters, and other chapters too that you could argue for. But Matthew, I haven't heard anyone none of the scholars I know thought Matthew's first two chapters didn't exist as part of Matthew's thing. And the scholars I like, they think Luke's using Matthew. So that's why there's a similar birth narrative. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Danny. And I appreciate this, and honestly, because questions like this aren't the ones I normally take. I want y'all to know. I'm like, I don't know. It's not my lane, but I love to see the conversation. Even when I see conversations in my comments, I used to be really big about jumping into the conversations. And then after a while, I realized, like, hey, dude, they're not talking to you. they talking to each other. Like they're
Yep. Yep. They're debating often too. You know what I mean? Like
that's right. Yes. Yes. All right. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit unless
okay.
we get another chat, and I'm going to ask some questions and we'll just kind of walk through. But okay, building a platform in this space means navigating strong opinions from every direction. And I get it from all sides. I get it from the believers who knew me. I get it from atheists who think I'm not atheist enough. I get it. I get it from everywhere, right? My question is, I know you've been experiencing different things. How does that shape, knowing that you're going to get different strong opinions from every direction? How does that shape how you run MythVision? How does that shape how you keep showing up?
Ooh. You know, because I empathize with so many humans and I hear different voices, I also sympathize with those different voices.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times as humans, people need to agree with us or they're not one of us. And if they don't, you can agree with them, but if you don't agree with the full conclusions of like, do what they're doing and act how they act, then those who aren't, part of what that group might be, you're now forced into a pickle. And because you care about both sides.
Yep.
Again, what is the foundation here of our mythos? People matter.
People matter.
That includes people that you might go, they've got some ugly things about them, but they still matter. And so I say that to say, like, I navigate a very difficult path of I'm not going to be able to make everyone happy. I've realized that. And I've tried. And I'm trying because I'm a people pleaser. I really want to make everyone happy. I really want everyone to be okay. I really want everyone to like me. I don't want people to hate me. I want people to like me. I try. I mean, maybe that doesn't work 100% of the time, but like I try. I do try to keep people happy. Don't try to hurt people. But I learned at some point to realize, again, what kept me from getting on drugs was loving myself, right? And I realized that my gut tells me, Derek, listen to yourself. Listen to your gut. Okay. Listen to your wife. Listen to your family. Listen to people who are there, who've been there from the beginning. They care. They really care. They don't on social media care.
Come on.
They don't through the internet waves say they care. But then like, as soon as you change a dogma or a doctrine or don't agree with a particular thing, guess who doesn't care anymore about you? Guess who's the first to throw you under the bus and the first to fucking attack you and treat you like you're trash?
Yeah.
Okay. Not your mom, not your wife, not those who are OGs in your life. Okay. And so once I realized I can't make everyone happy, and the friendships are often social media thick. So it's not always, the deeper level of relationships. You have to take care of your own self. And I realized that, hey, some people are going to be like, nope, draw the line with Derek. Yeah. And I have to go, I get it. I didn't draw the line. I didn't draw the line. You drew the line and you have that line, and you have every right to make that line. I respect your line, even if I think in my head, that's not who I want to be. That's not how I want to be. I'm not going to treat others the way I just got treated with this, in my opinion. Absolutely. And that's just how I feel about it. And that goes into religion. That goes into our social outlook on how we're trying to approach and assess people. And others have lines they feel maybe I've drawn.
Yeah.
And guess what? They probably don't respect my lines, and that's fine. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I mean, it's the complexity of living, right? Like none of this stuff is set in stone. None of us have figured it out, and so we're trying to navigate it the best that we can. And so we deserve to give each other a little bit of grace, Yeah. I don't know if I'll get this quote right, but Paul at one point said, "Such was such were we all at one point." And I do still kind of live that way. Like anytime I'm mad at anybody for not having a view that I have, and I'm like, bruh, like if you follow me backwards, I was a black nationalist at one moment. Like if you met me then, you'd be like, oh, like you suck, you should die. And I'm like, well then damn, I would have never had the opportunity to grow. And so like and that is where I put myself now. And that's a hard place to get to. Like when someone says something that I don't like, or someone's doing something that I don't like, or someone's doing something that I vehemently disagree with, my question is, do I want them to die? Do I want them to not exist? And if that's not my answer, then I have to find a way to make peace with the fact that there are other people on this planet whose lived experience doesn't lead to my conclusions. And so instead of needing anybody to die, what I really want is a world where we can all grow enough to figure out that, yeah, I was wrong. But if you're trying to kill me in my wrongness, I'll never learn. And so thank you for that. So now let me ask you this then, just right off of that.
Yeah.
What has backlash taught you about yourself? Let's forget about them for a moment. What have you learned about you when you go through moments like that?
Oh man, I realized that I am not as solid as I thought I was sometimes, man.
Ooh,
Like
that's real.
I'm a human. I am so human. I'm so susceptible to hurt, like, and but I also know that you got two choices. You're going to hurt because you're human and everyone's going to at some point. Or you just forsake yourself into some bite model structure of a community that does all the thinking and tells you who's okay. And as long as 100 other people around you tell you and pat you on the back and say, we agree with you, we support you, we also think they're the enemy with us, and we're okay and you're safe. It's not me. And that's the problem, is that I want to be me, but I also want to get along with all these people.
Yes.
And then some of that conflicts. And it hurts because I care. I loved some of these people so deeply that I think are also stuck in, and they're afraid because the group that you're involved in, and this goes for Christianity more than anything I know in my life, but it still also applies to when you leave the faith and you find communities that you've now inserted yourself into, where there's a fear of, if I say something, the priests, which are the leaders in that group, the high priest in that group, they will come after you. They will come after you. They will try to destroy you. And then the whole group wants to destroy you. And it's like, back to your point, you want me to die? Because I feel like you're attacking me. Like you really want to hurt me. And I don't think I've done, like, I'm not trying to hurt anybody. And I have hurt people accidentally because they've told me I've hurt them. So then I apologize. And then I'm back in the same spot. But who's not? What's really odd about this, Darante, and this, I don't want to bring up a lot of stuff, but this is one thing I think is important, is this. I haven't received apologies back, bro, for any of them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, damn, bro. The church didn't apologize to me when they excommunicated me for anything that they did to hurt me.
Come on.
And in this case, I'm trying my best, the best I know how. Nobody's willing to go out on a limb and go to vouch for me that is part of that community, that I died. Like I was bleeding, sweating, and fighting to try and help. And it's like, nah, you're tainted. You got cooties. Man. We don't agree with you on a decision you made about one person.
Yeah.
No, and it's like, damn.
We have another super chat, but before we do that, just because we're on this, is there a moment where you almost walked away from the platform? And if there is, what made you come back?
Bro, I think about it sometimes because the point you're bringing up about how I can easily get affected by some things. I've thought about, like, what are my options? I'm a father. I'm a father of 3. I'm a husband. I'm trying to provide. This is the bread and butter that ultimately provides for my family. And there are times where I wish I was a gamer.
Yeah.
Just chilling on a video game. I'm not kidding, bro. Hanging out on a video game, just gaming and hanging out with people who are like-minded, having fun, just living in this world of gaming and having fun, and not the serious nature of a lot of what we do. This is a serious world that we're in. And sometimes I want to break and relax and not take it so serious and just have fun, which is kind of why I did this post recently. It's been pretty cathartic to sit here and make post about me converting. Like, in one way, I'm pissing off the believers, and another, I'm pissing off the atheists for saying, damn it, you better not convert. And it's like, I'm having fun, not all, but I imagine some would probably get annoyed by it. And, I'm actually a really happy-go-lucky, very optimistic human in real life. I don't live doomsday life every day. I don't live thinking the worst case scenario about everything. I can focus on the bad shit, but I don't live that way, bro. If I lived that way, I'd probably end up in a dark place,
Come on now. Yes. And I worked too hard to get out of a dark place to ever go back. And so, no, thank you for being honest with that. I'm going to acknowledge our super chat. We got Mr. Video Warrior back for another $5. My question for atheist is, can you prove reality can exist if there's no one there to acknowledge its existence? I would first say that's probably not a great question for atheists. You'd probably want to go to the people who actually spend their lives studying that. Atheists just really have just one position on a God, on the belief of God. I just don't believe in a God. to add expertise on any other area, that's moving a little far thinking. But I'm curious, Derek, have you thought about that? Can you prove? Well, I'm gonna ask you before I ask you, can you prove reality? Have you tried to prove reality? Has that been on your bucket list of things to do?
I haven't really tried to prove reality. I if we're brains in a vat or something, I'm in a video game right now, and I just talked about video games, but this is really the Matrix, or somehow we're really in a simulation or something. Cool. I have no way to prove it. I to the question is simply, can you prove reality can exist if there's no one there to acknowledge its existence? And I think this is the idea of God, right? This is the idea of God. I don't know that question. I don't know. I'm an agnostic on knowledge claims like this. I'm an atheist by the fact that I don't believe there is a God, but that doesn't mean I know. Gnosis. I do not know that that's the case, and I am. I usually it's the religious, the man-made perceptions of God that we deconstruct often. So I don't know if there is something out there, Darante. I don't live my day to day thinking that there is, and I don't have like an axe to grind that there couldn't be. I just give me some evidence of it. And if nature is the evidence of it, then I'm a naturalist and I'm already worshiping it in a sense, because if Spinoza is correct and nature itself is it, and to some degree, okay, we're meeting, we're finding common ground that like existence itself is the divinity in some way or something. Cool. Okay, I'm that. Whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like God isn't the same thing though. In that case, defining God is differently than something other. And I'm cool with different definitions, but for me, God also is a baggaged term. It's like, it doesn't carry all the great things. I think a lot of, we could come up with better terms. Maybe. I don't know. But I can't prove it. No, to your question, I cannot prove it, but I don't think the theist can prove it either,
Mm-mm. No, like I think, and thank you so much for that question, Mr. Video Warrior. It almost reminds me of if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, did it fall type of thing. So I get it, and I do enjoy those type of mind expanding questions. We have another super chat, and so let me get to it. Like they're coming in today, man.
Yeah.
All right. This is Justice by Karma. Again, love these names. Thank you so much for that $10. Darante, you have so many inspirational stories, examples, and explanations that are much more powerful lessons of morality and clarity than any nonsensical religious narrative could ever give. Great stream. Thank you so much for that, Justice. I will say, like, I 20 years in the ministry will give you hermeneutics out of this world. What I do is, like, honestly, and this is just to humanize it, what I do is not very much different than what a comic does, what a comedian does. We look at the world and we interpret it in a language that we think other people can understand. That's literally the bulk of my work. I am more of an artist than a scientist at the end of the day, and I enjoy it. My job is to help people feel so that they can live, and so I love it. Thank you so much for that. That came back again. Okay, let's go. Justice by Karma 2 times, $2. Mr. Video Warrior, reality is not defined by perception. All right, y'all have at it. Derek, do you have anything on that one?
Goodness gracious. I've heard a lot of people go, do you trust your senses? How can you know what's really happening? There's a guy who does this. It's an idealist kind of approach to reality that it's trying to dismantle materialism and the idea of naturalism and stuff. And it's an interesting take, but I feel like he makes some leaps to try and get to this conclusion about reality itself. And honestly, I've not really been digging into this stuff lately. So I don't really have my head wrapped around much of this material to be able to combat any ideas or to give you my 2 cents of where I'm at and why. I've been digging into a debate that I have in 2 days and just kind of getting ready for Acts,
Man, well, that's actually a good point. I had an opportunity to do a debate. Like, I think I had only been doing content for like 3 months, and I got an invite from Kent Hovind to debate. And it was going to be, like on evolution versus, intelligent design, or evolution versus intelligent design. And at first I almost took it. And then I thought about it. I'm like, why would he be debating me on this? I'm not an evolutionary biologist. Like, I'm just some random on YouTube. And then I realized, like, oh man, that's so common for people to go find somebody that's not really in that space. And so it's like the moment you become atheist, everyone says, "Hey, give me the answers to all of these big questions." And I'm like, I didn't have the answers to those questions before. I was pretending and doing a really good job at pretending, but I'm not going to pretend anymore to reward anybody else's need for performance or certainty. And so I appreciate when Derek is able to be honest and say, I can't wrap my head around that. Because I'm gonna be the same way. You asked me how the world got here. I'm gonna tell you, I've never been trying to figure it out, so I'm not about to try to figure it out now. I'm not interested in stuff like that. I'm not. I mean, I'll be interested once they find the answer. I'm not gonna be the one to help them get it. I promise you that. But no, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like we got a little bit more break, so I'm gonna ask you these final few questions, and then I'll let you go. I don't want to hold you for too long.
No worries.
You know, it's no secret that we're building content. We're YouTubers. What have you had to unlearn as a creator as MythVision got bigger? Because I'm sure when this first starts, it's very cathartic, it's therapeutic, it's just you, and then it starts picking up steam. And what is something you've had to unlearn as a creator as your channel has changed?
Unlearn. That's a hard one. Give me an example if you can. Like,
okay. So like, has there been anything you've had to change in the way that you present your content? Has there been anything you've had to change? Maybe there were some things you did in the early days where you said, oh no, I can't do that anymore. And it doesn't necessarily have to be negative, but maybe just something that you said, no, this is going to be more effective, more efficient, or this is more online with who I am now.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I had to, I don't know if I want to call it unlearn. I'd call it learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn to let my scholars that I have on speak more. Because I have lots to say. Everyone has something to say, but like they're the guest. And I think it's rude sometimes. Now, mind you, sometimes they're meant to be dialogues, and some people get carried away in the comment section going, shut up and let the guest speak. And it's like, we're here to have a actual conversation. This isn't a lecture. If you want a lecture, go to a conference, listen to them. They'll have an hour of undivided attention. You can listen to them speak and no one talks. Most of mine are conversational, but even then, I noticed the craft is better when you do ask very precise questions and they're not long. They're very precise, very to the point. Let them do the work. Let them talk. Those interviews actually have more success and they actually perform better because they're there to see the expert when you do an interview with that expert. You see what I'm saying? So that was just one thing that came to mind when you said that.
That's a good one. Like that's an incredible one. I want to follow up. Did you learn that? Was that something that you learned from your audience through the comments, or was it something that you were sitting back watching those videos saying, I wanted to hear more? Both. Good.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. So I learned from my audience. I learned from a lot of people who comment. And I think the ones that comment and are like, hey, very kind and respectful, but they're not like just trying to make me look bad and be rude to me. Those are the people that I listen to the most because you want people to listen to you. Well, treat them with kindness. If you do, if you come at them hard, then my mind, you might be right. You just lost your, are you trying to convince me? Are you trying to just hurt me? Like,
that's right.
What do you want? You know what I mean? So again, I think the gentle approach and the massage of ideas has helped me to try and perfect my skill. And there's no telling what I'll unlearn or learn in 5 years, in 10 years, how my craft will change.
I love that because like when I first started doing content, I had music, excuse me, I had music playing behind all of my stuff. And some people like, turn that fucking music off. And it was stuff like that. And I was like, all right, but then somebody finally said, hey, we really love your voice. And the music is a little bit of a distraction. Right. And that sat with me. And I'm like, okay, no, this isn't a person who's just trying to tear me down. This isn't a person who's just being a reactionary jackass. This is a person who's actually trying to give some information. And that's always worth considering to me. Like if you're talking to me and you're treating me like a human being, even if what you're saying I disagree, because I still disagree with it. I think my voice goes perfect with music in the background, but my audience didn't, and they communicated it. And the ones who did it in a good way, I listened and it worked for me. So I was happy for it. I have one final question for you.
Sure.
since I've gotten into the game, I know who I am before I do any video. However, there's not one video that can give my audience a full depiction of who I am. So many of them end up trapping me into some version of who they think I am based off of the video that they saw or the amounts of videos that they saw. So my question for you is, how do you keep from becoming trapped by the version of Derek your audience think they describe to?
If I were to reword that question, to say it like this, we become, as you develop and grow a channel, you get a little bit of fame. We're mini celebs to some people. Okay.
Yeah.
When you become an image or you become a portrait, a picture that is drawn in their minds about who you are, it's natural to feed that picture. So how do you repeat that last part again? Because I feel like,
how do you keep from being trapped into that picture?
Right. How do you keep, because you might change. People change.
Yes.
I'm not the same I was 15 years ago. And 8 years ago, I started this channel, and I've changed a lot even then. I've changed on my social views. I mean, I didn't know about this stuff, dude. If people wanted me dead back then, I wouldn't have known. Like, you know what I'm saying? So
because that's real, because you literally went from being a mythicist, public, like right?
Right. On this, dude, the channel was called MythVision. I called it Myth because I was a mythicist. I'm not a mythicist anymore. And the channel is still called MythVision. You see what I'm saying? So like, I'm willing to change, and I can tell it hurts.
Yeah.
And it's difficult for guys like you and me, or any really content creator, because if you're willing to do something that could potentially cause people who have strong opinions that are in your audience to not want to cater to, a lot of people are just feeding you what you want to hear. And in fact, one of the rules are, when you look online, you search, you go through AI, you do all sorts of stuff. You try to search, how do I increase my audience? How do I grow my channel? One of the things it tells you is give your audience what they want. Okay.
Yes.
And that means you got to be what they want you to be to make a living.
Yep.
And I have had problems with this channel over the last 8 years, 2 or 3 situations that have led to thousands of exiles. Okay.
Yeah.
I was big enough to survive them, but there were times where there were 1,000 people unsubscribed in a week.
Man.
You know, and then I've had a growth, and then I've had exiles, and then I've had growth. And, you know, I just want to say to anyone who might be watching, who might feel that way, to see my heart and to understand, like, I'm really on a real thing here. This is not a joke. I'm not playing a game. This isn't a show. This is Derek Lambert. And I'm going to change, and things will happen. All I ask is that you understand my heart. And I'm not here to hurt you, and I'm not here to hurt anybody else. I'm just learning and changing and trying to be what I think makes the best sense for me in this moment. And I feel like that should be the same for you, Darante. So how do I be real? I'm authentic. And that even hurts me sometimes, but I sleep at night. And sometimes that sleep is a little unsettling sometimes, because I still think about the people that might be offended by it. So I'm just real, which is why I think about video games and think to myself, damn it, if I could just become a gamer, I don't have to dodge these bullets.
I'm going to OnlyFans soon. I'm just going to become a
But you see what I'm saying? Like, I think it's just being raw and authentic and real. And I don't want to be trapped. That is a problem. I don't want to be trapped by, because if I end up down the road being convinced, let's say, and I say, you know, actually, I went through this real journey, a deep journey. Now I kind of think there's something out there. I don't know what it is. Can't put a name on it. I'm no longer an atheist. Let's say that happened. I don't see myself ever returning to any high form religion. Then what now? Will you then excommunicate me because I think there might be something out there? Like, would that really cause you to go, everything he's ever done is uplifted because I changed? No. And I'm not saying that I do think that. I don't. I question, but I am open to evidence. And I don't know, man. I got to check myself and just realize, like, hey, be yourself. I have to catch myself when I'm doing these little debate call-in shows, bro. Because I know people want to see me do some harsh stuff and like be rough. But I also, I'm a teddy bear. I don't want to be too rough, you know, like I want to be nice. And So that's where I'm at, man. I don't know
No,
if that answers your question.
it does. It does. Like you've done incredible today, and I am gonna let you go, but it just reminds me like most of my audience know I pulled away from debate shows like a while back. And I resigned, nicely and all that stuff. And it wasn't nothing negative. Negative stuff came later. But I resigned because I didn't like the attention it was giving me. Like I'm a very comical guy, so I can be on the show and I can make some jokes and I can make, I make people feel bad. I grew up with Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. You ain't ready. So but I realized people started coming to me more for, hey, how do I own the Christians in my life? How do I debate this? How do I prove these people? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I was doing that for the show. That's really not me. Like that's
Yeah.
I don't want to give you tools that are going to harm your relationships with people. Because honestly, like debate should be consensual. And so like if you have a family member who is a believer and you're trying to force them into debate, that's not really healthy. And that's not something I want to help you do. A lot of times you have to have trust before you try to introduce truth. And so that's why my work tries to introduce that. But I really appreciate you sharing that, because being true to yourself, and that's the one thing I ask myself. I don't care how great the table is this a table that I can be comfortably sitting at? And if it's not, I'm going to have to give up. I'll be more than willing to preserve my relationships with everybody at the table, but I can't sit at it because it doesn't represent who I am and the work that I want to do, and will keep me from being seen by the people that I'm actually trying to reach. And that's what I do love about Bridge City community right now, is that we have such a vibrant community. Last question, and this one is very simple. How much has your wife been a part of your support system? Because again, you're one of the few people I've talked to on the phone, and it's not just that I've been able to talk to you, but I've been able to hear your queen in the background, and and have been on the phone with her a few times. So how important is she for you as a partner, as a friend, as support?
Without her, there ain't nothing.
Yeah.
She's everything. She's everything to me. She is the most important thing in my life. You wouldn't have MythVision if it weren't for her.
Wow.
That girl has been through everything with me, bro.
That's heavy.
Dude, she fucking has gone through it all, bro. And let me tell you, she's the most gangster of all of them.
Yeah.
There's nobody who comes close, not even close. And and I'll tell you, you wouldn't have MythVision. I wouldn't be clean.
Man.
Like I wouldn't be alive today. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I'm keeping it real. Listen. It gets me sentimental, but bro, she doesn't even realize it. I say it, but I don't think she knows. So I have to keep trying to remind her, but I don't think she knows. And it's like 20 years goes by. We've been together almost 20 years. And I'm like, do you realize yet? You're like, I ain't going nowhere. You're my rock. And then, but she still has these little, make sure you let me know, remind me, you know what I mean? Because, the world is full of competition in her head. And I'm like, listen, ain't nobody competing with you. Wow. You're everything. You know what I'm saying? You're everything. So, yeah, man.
Oh my goodness. I hope y'all heard that. Like, that was beautiful. Like, so much so, like, this just changed my ending. I was going to end with the song, but I'm going to remove the song because, like, this, I didn't expect to ask that question, but I know how important your relationship is. And I see how, like, you two really support each other. And as a person who's married with a family, like, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. And that was, I think that was a perfect way to kind of close today's program. And so thank you for being honest with me today. Thank you for being vulnerable. I know we went through some easy questions and then we went through a few that were a little tough. But thank you for being a part of this conversation. I appreciate you like a brother. I appreciate you like a friend. I know I'm not always easy to get in touch with, and it's not because I'm bougie. Listen, I'm not bougie. I'm busy, and I am a hermit, right? A part of my journey was having to let go of a lot of relationships. And so I'm still learning what it means to be a friend again. Like and after some things that I've experienced, I'm like, I went right back in. I'm like, I ain't dealing with that bullshit.
Everywhere you go, you're going to find that. Right. And that's why I reached out to you personally, and I still do. And when I did, I've seen you go through some trials yourself, even in the world, we're supposed to be trialists. We're supposed to be supposed to be in a world where we think, and I reach out to you and I just wanted to show you love. I was in my swimming pool flexing.
Yeah, man.
I did that on purpose, bro.
Come on now.
I wanted them to know. I said, you do you take care of you, Darante, and you focus on your family. You are, I know you. We've had hours long talks.
Yes,
and
sir.
I know your heart. I know where you're coming from, and you're authentic, bro. And I hope more people will come and subscribe from MythVision to you. Support what you're doing. Join what you're doing. If they're looking for a community that has got one dogma, and if this is a dogma you can't swallow, bro, you're in the like. Go somewhere. You know what I'm saying?
Come on now.
People matter. And look, man, I'm just thankful for your friendship. You know what I mean? You matter to me. So
thank you. Well, listen, y'all, I know I normally give us some music before we leave out, but I want y'all to sit with this conversation. And so I'm just going to really end it here. Thank you all so much for being with us. For all of you who gave super chats, literally, we couldn't do this type of work without your support. And you have no idea how big of a difference you make in the work that we do, and not just the work that we do, but the people who are reached by this work. And that's how we make this ultimately as good of a place as we can. So thank you all. We're going to let you go. Y'all go get y'all something to eat. Go love on your families. Go do something fun. And until next time, y'all, keep rising.